This is Critical Commentary with Maurice Williams. Today we'll be discussing the Israel-Hamas Peace Agreement Phases 1 and 2, as well as the continued government shutdown. Blacks, Hispanics, and whites can't read. Why you think I started a podcast? It's a fucking racist thing with you niggas, and that's why I'm coming at you niggas next. They love to talk about black violence. Have you heard of white violence? White people commit violent crime at 3 times the rate of Asians. When is Nick Fuentes going to talk about white violence? Everybody's arguing about their 2 genders. I sat next to a hermaphrodite in math class. Am I allowed to talk about the Jews? If she wanted, we could do it in the morning. Yawning, letting my eyes stretch, baby, I ain't a novice. I've been a dog, she FaceTime, but I never call. The hostages have returned home. Today, 20 of the living hostages from the Israel-Hamas war have been returned by Hamas, and they are now on Israeli soil. So Israel and Americans are happy about this, and the remaining 28 hostages who are slain but still in the custody of Hamas will be returning soon. In total, 1,300 Israelis were murdered on October 7th, or because of the October 7th massacre, and 66,000 Gazas have been killed as well. The death toll for Gaza may be higher. We won't know until more reporting is done. In return for the hostages being returned by Hamas to Israel, Israel has agreed to release 2,000 Palestinian prisoners. All of them may or may not be members of Hamas. They were just people who were detained throughout the course of the war. So those 2,000 Palestinians are on their way to Palestine, and some have already returned to Gaza. For once in American politics, both sides, Democrats and Republicans alike, are celebrating the news for a vast number of reasons. So you have people like Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, who are high-ranking members and people of high influence in the Democratic Party, praising the Hamas-Israel agreement, as well as you have people in Biden's staff and people on the other side in Trump's staff, all in agreement saying that it's an historic event. And the reason that both sides are praising this is because in the Middle East, there's been a tension for a very long time, even tracing back all the way to the 1940s, 1947, 1946, going back to the World War II. There's been tension between the European Jews who have come back to the Middle East and the people currently living in the Middle East. There's been a tension, and the surrounding countries, sometimes it's been Egypt, sometimes it's been Jordan, sometimes it's been Iran, Iraq, just a host of countries. They've had different disputes with Israel. So this agreement did not come just at the behest of Donald Trump, who did announce it and played a key role in it, which even the Democrats are saying that it takes a village to come to this agreement. But the agreement itself came from Hamas, Israel, America, a Middle East countries such as Egypt and Qatar played a significant role. They got together and they agreed on a plethora of things. And it's now coming out that there's multiple phases to the agreement. So the initial phase is sort of like the honeymoon state, is the releasing of the hostages and the releasement of the prisoners. So both sides are getting their people back. But also we're going into the second phase where Hamas is supposed to disarm, and they're also supposed to give up their governmental control. And Israel has said that they will cease bombing because they had done a lot of devastation in Gaza. The concern now that the honeymoon stage it's not over, but the agreement's been signed and Israel has got its people back, and they're beginning the process of releasing the Palestinians. The concern now is that Hamas will not give up power, and they won't disarm. So the most important thing is that they disarm, and they haven't really shown that they are going to be willing to disarm, as footage has also already come out on social media showing that some soldiers, you can't say high-ranking members, but some soldiers of the Hamas military have been seen murdering people in the streets of Gaza. There's not much context, so nobody knows why, but there's speculation that some of the people who may have helped Israel are now being punished by Hamas as the Gazans return back to their home. So because the people are unsure if Hamas is going to give up, demilitarize, and give up power, there's concern that though this agreement has been agreed to on paper, that there may continue to be ongoing attacks from either side because Israel is not sure if Hamas is gonna disarm, but also Israel's not okay with one of the but one of the possibilities that's in the 20-point U.S. Trump plan, and that is a consideration that Palestine can be considered its own state. So as I said, the Israelis are people who came from other parts of Europe, and when they came, they named it Israel, and it was accepted worldwide as being territory belonging to Israel. And Gaza has, though acknowledged as a place, it's not considered a country, or it's not acknowledged on the national stage. What America and other nations are trying to do with this agreement is they're opening the door that the Palestinians can get their own recognized state internationally, but Israel, for potentially the purpose of greater Israel or security reasons, is not currently willing to accept a plan where Palestine is considered its own state. So because of this, some of the other Arab countries, not Qatar, not Jordan, not Israel, but some of the countries such as Iran, which is seen as one of the largest sponsors of government terrorists, places like that, since Israel is not willing to acknowledge Palestine, people are concerned that they may continue to fund insurgents. So with the possibility out there that Hamas or other organizations like Hezbollah, who has also been not destroyed, but greatly impacted by U.S. and Israel forces, the concern is that though there's peace right now, because there hasn't been a greater resolution between Israel and all of its neighbors, there's concern that at some point, one of the power players in the Middle East who is not on board with the West and who does not see eye to eye with the West, at some point they may fund another insurgent group that will attack Israel, or Israel may preemptively attack one of the Muslim extremists, because Israel sees itself still as a target in the region. So they may act before they are attacked again. Last time they waited and they were attacked on October 7th. So Israel may find it necessary for their country's defense to be preemptive and strike one of the insurgent groups. So I'm not saying that Israel would attack another nation outright and start a war, but Israel may believe that their insurgent groups planning an attack, and in response of intel that they find out, they may strike a Middle Eastern people in the Middle East, just not tied to the government. Now, Trump stated that he believes that this peace agreement would not have been met if Iran would have had their nuclear power and had their nuclear capabilities. I'm not going to call them a nuclear power, but they were trying to create nuclear bombs. And the concern that Trump has is that had Iran still been advancing as they were prior to America's strikes, he believed that Iran would have been able to talk to the insurgents and the militias, and Iran would have been able to guarantee them money and also guarantee them weapons. So they need money and they need weapons and food to fight. And if Iran would have been not disarmed, but somewhat crippled by the American and Israeli strikes, because Israel also did its own strikes on Iran using drones, and had American and Israel not done that, Trump and some other European allies believe that Iran would have continued to fund insurgents like Hezbollah and Hamas, which are the recent two. But there are other extremist groups in the Middle East and smaller places like Iraq, and not smaller, but countries that have not been in the news recently, such as Iraq and Jordan. So we will continue to follow the developing story in the Middle East, and as more implementation of stage 2 comes out, we will cover that, as well as when we learn more about stage 3 of the peace agreement. But for now, there's peace, and really the whole world, I would say, not just the Western powers, but even places like China and Russia, which are considered Eastern powers, are also hoping for stability in this region, because the Middle East is a huge importer of gas, and they affect the world economy. So it would really be better for the entire world if there was less fighting in the Middle East. Moving on to other news, the government is still shut down. there have been a host of people affected by the shutdown, postal workers, IRS employees, contracted government officials, people in the military. So over the weekend, there was actual footage of people who are U.S. veterans and U.S. current soldiers entering food banks because the government payments stopped on September 30th. So people got their last check, but the work that they did after September 30th was not paid out. So as of now, up to 4 days have been cut, but more days will be cut as the shutdown continues. Because of this, the government not having the money to pay the workers, the people who are federal employees, Trump has stated that he would like Pete Hegseth to open up additional funds to pay the soldiers, but those funds have not even been opened up yet. Plus, people who are not soldiers, such as IRS workers and postal workers, are beginning to feel the effects. And the effects range outside of just employees, but it's reaching students. There are many students around the country who are military personnel as well, or National Guard personnel, or working the military in some other capacity. So these students normally have their tuition covered, but because of the shutdown, their tuition is not covered. So Columbia has actually started a program to help these students with their books, with their tuition, with their meals. This is all a sad situation because you don't want to see people who serve the U.S. and protect us and protect our rights going without food. And you definitely don't want to see college students going without food. And all of these people put their lives on the line to protect and serve us. So because of the shutdown not just being something that's talked about now, but people actually seeing it in their paychecks and seeing it in their schooling and seeing it in their ability to get food, it's believed that the pressure will rise and the Democrats and Republicans will come together because of the pressure by their constituency. Because military personnel is not just left or right, they're both. So there's belief that the people being affected are now going to go to their politicians with anger and with fire, and that they're going to demand answers. And the belief is that the politicians who don't want to lose out on their upcoming elections will listen to the will of the people and decide it's in their best interest on both sides to come to either an agreement on the larger problem, which is that the Republicans want to cut Medicaid, Medicare, and the Affordable Health Care Act by $1 trillion, versus the Democrats' belief that they want to extend those subsidies like the Republicans extended the tax credits for the wealthy. The belief is that they're going to come together and find either a resolution or a solution of compromise where one side doesn't get all it wants and the other side doesn't get all that it wants. We will continue to follow this at Critical Commentary, but there hasn't been any indication that the shutdown will end immediately. But the belief and hope is that these politicians tend to, when they get enough heat, enough town halls, they tend to change their tune a little bit and listen to the voters and come to some sort of deal or agreement. So we'll be keeping our eye on that over the coming few days. Outside of the national news, since I've been responding to Nick Fuentes clips, a lot of people have been commenting. So my producer thought it would be a good idea to respond to something else from Nick. This video is Nick Fuentes finds Erika Kirk. Erika Kirk is Charlie Kirk's widow. Very suspicious, criticizing her lack of emotion and believing she benefited from Charlie's assassination. Haven't even watched the video, and there's a lot to unpack here. Charlie Kirk was assassinated. He was a right-wing voice, and he helped the Republican Party get a lot of votes, and he was bringing excitement into the conservative movement, which tend to be seen as an older demographic. Charlie was bringing fun to the youth who also had those conservative and Republican values, and he was registering voters and getting a lot of young conservatives to start sharing their views online, as he also shared his views online. Let's see what Nick had to say about this situation. Very interesting.
Charlie and Erika, I do not believe for 1 second that they met organically. How do you think they met each other? Do you think that they bumped into each other at CPAC and Charlie said, hey, let's go on a date? No, they were set up together by somebody. Who set them up? Charlie, I'm sure, he's super ambitious, super powerful, running this organization. They told him you need a wife. I'm sure he wants a wife. They told him you need a wife. If you want to run for office, you need a wife and kids, you need a family. They're grooming him to be super powerful. So he's hanging out at Bohemian Grove, and they say, we need to give you a wife. We know somebody. We know this girl, and she's in some, how do they know her? Who set them up, and where did this girl come from that's going to be Charlie Kirk's wife and bear his children? I think that was an arranged marriage. And that tells me that she is tapped into some kind of network in some way. I don't know how. People talk about she was a pageant girl and she ran this charity. Maybe there's a connection there. I would not be surprised at all. That, if you're talking about Erika Kirk, that I believe. People say Israel killed Charlie Kirk. Yeah, I don't know about that one. Let's look at the marriage. Erika Kirk is now taking over Turning Point. That's...
Don't know where Nick's gonna go, but I have always seen Nick as a conspiracy theorist, and just the opening of this kind of was him questioning how they met. I do understand that it's possible that when a person like Charlie is growing in power, if he doesn't have a wife and kids, sometimes people think that's politically advantageous to have a wife and kids. So it's possible that someone hooked him up. But also it's possible that if Charlie was a big in the influencer circles, which he was, and if she was a pageant girl, it's possible that just two known figures can be at the same parties in the same events because they have similar ideologies or they're in similar circles. So I see what Nick is saying. It's possible, but it's also possible that they could have just come across each other from their lifestyles.
Suspicious as fuck. Because what we are being led to believe is that Erika Kirk is the archetypal trad girl. Isn't that the perception they're cultivating? When you look at some of these clips, she's supposed to be the ultimate trad wife. She's speaking at the Young Women's Leadership Summit. She's on podcasts saying, oh my gosh, I can't focus because I'm so in love with Charlie. If he's here, I can't focus. I'm so smitten. Like, that's the character that she's playing. That's the character that they're selling us. Her husband gets shot in the neck graphically in front of everybody. Shouldn't Miss Tradwife, shouldn't she be like despondent? And I'm not trying to judge how people grieve. It's not our position to judge how they grieve or what their response is. Maybe she's just got unbelievable resolve. But if she really is the ultimate trad wife who knows her place and is a helper to her husband, a helpmate, and she's so smitten with him and she's the perfect trad wife like how she's been presented to us for years, then when her husband gets shot in the neck and blood starts spurting everywhere in front of everybody who starts screaming and running away, shouldn't she be like in shock? Shouldn't she be like in a catatonic?
Okay, this is very interesting. So I'm noticing a few things. Some of this is about my perception of Nick. He's making a lot of sense, and I guess some of these things I have kind of thought to myself in terms of like her behavior, but it's not just animated. I guess he comes off as almost like criticizing her, and I never thought of it in a criticizing manner. I just was interested in like, okay, when Charlie died and then Charlie would no longer be the leader, I wondered, well, who would be the leader? And then Erika kind of stepped in, and I was just thinking about, okay, well, who are some of the big names in the conservative movement? I thought one of them would step in. And then I thought, would it be a moderate conservative? Would it be like someone, not Nick, but someone who's more extreme? I was just kind of wondering what would happen to TPUSA, and wondering that, I was somewhat shocked that she stepped in. So, I mean, I'm not saying she isn't grieving, and I don't necessarily think it's bad that she's stepping in, because who would know Charlie better than anyone else? It would be his wife. Who, if I were married or had a significant other, which I currently don't, who would I want to step in and run my business or take care of my affairs? I would want it to be my wife. So I can understand why his wife would step in, and I can understand how it's logical. But then I can also understand, okay, if I had just died, where would my wife's head be? I don't have a wife again, but if I had a wife or a significant other and they had just died, or somebody that I was very close to, if they had just died, where would I be in terms of my workspace? On the one end, I think that I could focus, but on the other end, I wonder if I would be in the proper headspace to say some of the things she said, such as I would forgive the prison, I would forgive the shooter. I believe that I may not have the courage or the ability to keep myself composed as well as she has. So I can understand what Nick is saying. He's kind of saying, well, she's able to be composed because she doesn't care. I wouldn't say that because that's too far of a bridge for me to jump. But I can see how Nick, and I've also seen other people online kind of question what's going on. I can piece it together. I just wouldn't jump that far because I think that's saying a lot. She has lost the father of her children. Those are her children. She has lost the father of her children. She's lost her husband. That was her husband. So I just don't think it would be appropriate to pass judgment on somebody at this particular point without all the facts and without knowing a plethora of other information that may be behind her decision to take over the company.
State or crying and be in a veil as a widow somewhere. But that's not what we got at all. The second he dies, she takes over Turning Point. That happened like 2 days later. She's all of a sudden the president of this $500 million organization. Super influential, now super powerful after Charlie became a martyr, and she's given speeches. She's given a speech, and the speech, I'm sorry, it's totally canned. The first speech she gave next to his empty chair, she's like doing this weird affect, wiping away tears that aren't there with this scripted speech, the battle cry of this widow, the cries of this widow will echo like a... And then at the WWE Memorial, she comes out to fireworks and she does this like she's Mary in her white suit, her makeup, her hair did, and she goes out with fireworks at her husband's fucking funeral like this. She fucking posed. Did you see that? And then she goes up and says, yeah, I'm running Turning Point now, and this is how... It's giving me like Claire Underwood vibes.
So I'm not sure if the viewers saw the House of Cards, but Claire Underwood was the wife of Kevin Spacey in House of Cards, and she had her husband killed. Now, what I'll say about Nick is normally when he has conspiracy theories, they're against Israel. And I've heard a lot of people on X discussing how they're wondering why Nick has changed his tune about Israel. Because after Charlie was killed, Nick said he didn't believe it was Israel, and now he's stating it again. But he doesn't believe it was Israel, a powerful nation who could potentially assassinate someone. But instead, he's saying it was a conspiracy to kill Charlie. But now he's trying to parse through it and say it was his wife who was behind it. So I'm not saying Israel killed Charlie. I'm not saying his wife killed Charlie. But I just find it interesting that normally Nick points to Israel for everything, and now I've noticed in a few statements that he's made, he's not quick to say anything against Israel, and he's bringing up Charlie Kirk's wife. Now, besides me noticing Nick's stance on things, I've noticed as we've done reactions on this show, we did a reaction to Nick on YouTube with Patrick Bet David, and we also did an interview with him talking to a comedian, Dave Smith. Now, Nick was banned from most platforms, so having Nick on YouTube doing those interviews was somewhat odd. And then I also came across this weekend, I saw that his podcast is on Spotify. So, not to be a conspiracy theorist myself, but there seems to be a willingness by the mainstream, not mainstream media, but the mainstream social platforms to now allow Nick Fuentes content, and it was banned. So if Nick believes it's possible that Charlie Kirk's wife was behind his murder, and he believes that it's possible that Israel is behind almost every major war or every major bit of news that affects the American people and American government, I suppose it's possible that Nick got a phone call if he's not as against Israel as he used to be, and he's being seen more on CNN. He's been seen on CNN, Iran TV. He's been seen on Spotify now and YouTube. So not saying that Nick did get the call, but it's just something that I'm wondering at the moment.
I think that was an arranged marriage. And either she was like a handler or she was she had political ambitions of her own. But yeah, I don't know. Look, who is Erika Kirk now? This is a person that is being foisted on us. And look, don't get me wrong. You lost your husband. I am deeply sorry for you. I really am. I'm praying for you. I am deeply sorry for you. I can't imagine what you're going through. But you becoming president of Turning Point and now being foisted upon us, that's an altogether different story. You know, it's like I said on Monday, and Alex Jones didn't like this. He said it was mean. A lot of people didn't like it. You want our sympathy? You got it. You want our prayers? You got it. People would, walk over broken glass for this widow who can even sympathize, who can even understand what she's going through right now. But they're asking us to accept her as like this new leader. They're foisting her on us as a...
So this kind of explains the predicament that Nick and other conservatives and other just political commentators are in. We have to judge Turning Point after Charlie's passing, and we have to give our opinions on what's going on with Turning Point. But when the leader is the widow, you're kind of in a precocious situation. How much can you criticize someone if they've lost their husband? But how can we not state our opinion if we're looking at, as he stated, a massive $500 million organization? Before Charlie died, I was very critical of Turning Point, as I thought that some of the things that they said about the black community, some of the other races, some of the other genders, like the homosexual and transgender community, I thought some of their beliefs and values were a little harsh. And believe they just took it too far with their narrative. So how can people continue that criticism if the person doing all the speaking and stating those points is a widow? We're kind of in a situation where we want to discuss politics, but we also have to continuously take into consideration what she's going through. So I guess it comes down to this. At what point will we look at Erika Kirk as a political figure versus looking at her as a grieving widow? And that somewhat comes down to her and what she does moving forward, but it also comes down to each individual. For me, I think I should give her a little bit more time to grieve and just find out what is going to be her role. She may be the president or she may be on the board, but there are a lot of people who talk in the conservative movement. So I'm not sure long term how long she will be the communicator and the person handling the narrative and the person that's on the front lines. So I'll just keep my comments to myself and give her more time to grieve, but also to see what the company does as a whole. And then once we find out, then I'll be more comfortable giving my opinion about not Charlie Kirk, but his wife, Erika Kirk, as well as TPUSA as a whole.
A political leader, and that I don't like. I don't like that because that's manipulative. That is predatory. She's the widow. Who can criticize her? She's a widow. Who could ever say anything negative about her? They're exploiting that. They're exploiting that. She's untouchable. She's beyond reproach. She's the victim of the tragedy. It's like when a victim of a school shooting starts running an anti-gun nonprofit. It's like March for Our Lives, because who could criticize a kid that almost got killed in a school shooting? It's giving me vibes. I don't like that. I don't like when some victim of some atrocity is then presented as a political figure, because it's like, okay, who the fuck are you? You're the victim of some tragedy? That sounds like a really shitty thing to say, but it's like, how do I know you're not being controlled by somebody? Because quite honestly, we knew who Charlie Kirk was and he built the organization. We have no idea who you are. What makes you qualified to run Turning Point? Because your husband got killed? What makes you qualified? We don't know anything about you. We don't know where you came from. We don't know anything about you. For all we know, you are working for some other person or now the board.
So his points, again, they're very valid. I guess just with Nick and me personally, his statements come off like very conspiratorial. So I'm following him, then he goes, oh, but this group may be behind you. I'm following you, and then, oh, you may be up to this. So up until he actually starts stating what the potential negative things that could be going on, I actually follow him. I guess me and him are just different. Like, I don't put a negative spin on every action. I put more of a question on every action. So why is Nick behaving how he's behaving? Why is Erika behaving how she's behaving? With Netanyahu, it's a little bit different, guys. I think he's a war criminal. But if I was being fair, I could just say, why is he behaving how he's behaving?
Is going to run it. Now some shadowy force is going to run Turning Point through you, or you represent. We don't know. We don't know who you are. But no one can say that because she's a widow. And that I don't like. Because this is a high-profile killing. It is forcing people to ask a lot of questions. And this is the one aspect of it that we're not allowed to ask questions about because it's in bad taste. Well, you know what? This is politics. If you want to speak at the funeral, no one's going to question that. But you seize control of the organization right away, I'm seizing the reins. And no one dare question me because I'm a widow.
So again, I agree with Nick here. I'm going to hold my comments, but I actually don't see anything wrong with Nick and others expressing what they believe. I actually saw Pearl Davis make a comment about how she thought Erika taking over was suspicious. And I have heard some other voices on the right, either post reels or just mentioned in tweets that they are skeptical of her behavior and of her grieving. So I don't think anyone's wrong to be questioning her already. Just me, for my personal comfort, I'm going to wait. But again, all Nick's questions are valid. Just I put an asterisk on some of his some of the things he's implying could be possible. Again, anything could be possible. So when he says something could be possible, I feel like he's putting that in your mind as a possibility to think of. And that's what I mean by put an asterisk by what he's implying. I take his questions as implying something.
Yeah, I don't like that. I don't like that one bit. And it doesn't really track. Like I said, if you watch any of the clips, it's just like downright insulting. The way that she's presented as like a trad wife. And correct me if I'm wrong, and I might be, but if you're the ultimate trad wife, shouldn't you be a little bit more torn up about this? I know I sound like an asshole. Where's the tears? Really? You're a trad wife? You're a helpmate. You're smitten. You're so in love, blah, blah, blah. Your husband got publicly executed in front of all of his adoring fans 3 days ago. You're giving a speech today, taking control of Turning Point, vowing like that we're going to make Turning Point bigger than ever.
This is why I didn't want to touch on the topic, though, is because now he's commenting about how she should grieve, and I feel as though everybody grieves differently. She could break down in 6 months. She could have already broken down and got her thoughts together. Her and Charlie could have already talked about him potentially losing his life, and she may have been preparing for this longer than we did, because of a lot of influencers have been saying they've been getting death threats. So I won't say the people's names, but various people that I follow who have 200, 300, a million followers, they've been tweeting about getting death threats. And Benny Johnson, one of the big conservative influencers, recently had somebody who mailed him a letter arrested. So it's more going on than what maybe the viewer may be thinking. If these people have been getting threats for a long time, potentially they've been sharing with their family what they would like done. So I do understand totally what Nick is saying. He thinks that she should be broken up. He thinks she should be distraught. He thinks that if she's really the type of woman she's portraying people to be, like a trad wife, as he says, a traditional wife who stays at home, cooks, and takes care of the family and is not out working, because now she's in front of public and she's somewhat like, she's not a feminist, but she's doing the work of a feminist from the standpoint of a feminist would be leading the organization. A feminist would be talking to the public. Whereas before she was in the background and doing more of the homemaking duties. So he's just saying if she really was like that, how is she now summoning up the strength to do these things? So I get the question, but it's too emotional of a topic for me to come at her at this moment. But I will definitely continue, as I said, to watch what happens with TPUSA and Erika Kirk.
Is that typical trad wife behavior? Who is this person exactly? Who is this? No one knows. So listen, and I know I don't really buy a lot of the Israel conspiracies. That is something I'm very interested in. Erika Kirk is someone I'm very interested in. You know, when people talk about energy weapons and decoy shooters and trap doors, you lose me. When you talk about the person that succeeds Charlie Kirk, that's relevant.
People have been asking me to play more of the video. I will try, but I find it ironic. All of those things he just said about trapdoors and decoy shooters, these are all things that for almost a decade now he would have blamed on Israel. So it's just very odd and bizarre that he's now saying, I'm lost on all the conspiracies about Israel. That doesn't make sense to me. But this person who I know nothing about, I'm willing to believe she killed someone. You're saying you know nothing about her, but yet you're passing judgment on her and saying she might have killed someone. Whereas the entity that you've been talking about for a decade, you're saying that you don't believe they could have done what you've been predicting they would do the whole time. Just saying.
Who's going to take his place? Good question. It's the wife. Who's the wife? No one knows. So, you know, some of that stuff, the Epstein files, I don't know how much that plays into it because Charlie was in favor of covering them up. A week after the DOJ covered up the Epstein files, Charlie Kirk went on his show and said, I trust the government. I don't want to ask any more questions about it. So I don't think that had anything to do with it. I think they just took advantage of it. But, yeah, but the wife is sort of interesting. And I know I sound like a jerk. Fine. I sound like a jerk. I don't care. That's a question that needs to be answered. And she's in politics now. If she wanted to be a widow, then, you know, she should have just started some fucking foundation and said, we're giving out the Charlie Kirk Memorial Scholarship or something. But she took control of a $500 million all-important political org that just got way more important. And, you know, succeeding a guy that died, it's a little suspicious. So, yeah, I gave me a very bad taste in my mouth when am I the only one? I mean, tell me what you think. One's in the chat if you think I'm onto something. Two, if you think I'm a dick.
Okay, so I think this is a good place to end. Again, Nick had a lot of valid criticisms. I'm open to doing more of these if you guys like them. Again, I'm not neutral on Nick. I kind of came at him with a bias, so I'm going to try to work on not taking digs at him, but, I mean, he just opened himself up to a big dig. So he's saying that we should let him know if he's a dick. I don't know if he's a dick, but he does sound a little bit like a Mossad agent. You know, I'm not saying he is one. I'm just curious if he got the call. And we have some comments over the weekend. I don't know how many we got, but the producer of the show texted me a couple times letting me know that people were leaving comments. So we're going to read a couple on the show today. Lex Losophone, I actually remember you, unless I've already done this comment before and responded to it. I actually remember you, so I appreciate you commenting. We have Chris 7649. Here's an idea, and this is to a viral clip that was where I commented on black fatigue. Chris R6749 says, here's an idea. Since you are sick and tired of white people, how about you pack your bags and fly on back to Wakanda? Not funny. I will respond to this. Once you are there, we will send Oh, you really got jokes. We will send reparations. Sound good. Sounds horrible. And you sound low IQ. Wakanda isn't real, but you and your people can go back to Europe, where you come from. I don't think blacks, so I'm agreeing with you there. I don't think blacks necessarily need reparations. I think at this point, everybody has free will in America and has the same opportunities. So I'm actually not in favor of reparations. So yeah, y'all can keep the reparations. We're just going to work hard as a people and continue to prosper because I believe blacks are prospering. Soul S. Barn says the shutdown is not immigrants, it's the Epstein files. The Democrats have enough votes to bring out enough votes for the Epstein files. Okay, some are saying that Trump is doing the various things he's doing to take attention off the Epstein files. It is possible Elon's in the files from what's been released. Trump has stated he had a relationship with Epstein. He's also stated that Epstein has taken some of the workers from his working under Trump buildings and Trump organizations. Some of those workers eventually were hired by Epstein. Some of them were younger girls. I won't say they're under 18, but they were younger girls. Trump has admitted to grabbing women by the pussy. It's very possible that Trump, like other famous politicians such as Bill Clinton and others, have abused women. I believe that they should release all the information. And if even people I looked up to are in these files and they have done criminal activities, I believe they should be prosecuted. And I believe that the victims should have their day in court. And I believe for things like sexual assault and murder, we should even consider changing the law so that there isn't a short statute of limitation, because some things I think are very important and we need to find out who did them no matter how long we have to wait. Jinx AM 8395 says, according to the United States Sentencing Commission, while white men make up less than 30% of the U.S. population, 78% of child pornography trafficking convictions are white men. Individual and offensive characteristics, 47% of individuals were sentenced for child pornography, and 98% were men, 77% were white men. Okay, so there's a bunch of facts and statistics. So this person is stating that though whites only represent 30%, white males represent 30% of the population, they're 80% of the child pornography convictions. Obviously, that's a problem. I believe Emily, before Emily Saves America, mentioned what are white people doing wrong. This is a statistic saying that you're 30% of the population and 80% of the people arrested for that particular offense. So in the white community, it seems like child pornography is a problem. You guys should focus on that. And then in general, it says 98% men. So it seems like even bigger than it being a white male thing, it's just a male thing. So men, we need to get our act together and we need to find out what's going on and what we can do to become better people. Because this is unacceptable to have so many men looking at child porn or doing anything to a minor. As I stated with the Epstein files, I'm against any sort of harm to children. I'm more against harm to children than actual murder, because I believe two adults can have an agreement. You can have not just wars, but there are situations where I believe, though it's wrong to kill somebody, I believe there are times when you can at least defend it, whether it's self-defense or certain type of situation. Somebody breaks into your home. It's just different situations that can occur where somebody may need to die. But there's never a chance where you should harm a child, ever. Harm a child or a woman. I'm against both. Trini N1U, men are not women. I agree. However, there are men, women, and transgenders, and naturally occurring transgenders are hermaphrodites. So I do believe biologically we do have men, women, and hermaphrodites, and I also believe that sexuality. I mean, some say it's fluid, but I'll just say it exhibits on a spectrum. So to me, I do believe in the two genders, but I'm also open to acknowledging that there are 8 billion people and everybody's unique. So I can't say that other people's beliefs are wrong or how other people feel is wrong. I can just say that I respect you and I respect your space. Please respect my space, and somehow let's find a compromise, in the public space where everybody can coexist. Okay, a lot of people have been commenting to Nick because I have comments and then comments to the comments. So we have IP Freely to Nick Fuentes admits truth about Patrick Bet David. Why can't most black people take accountability? I believe I take accountability. Blacks have the lowest test scores. Blacks commit crime at the highest rate. They commit violent crime at the highest rate. They commit murder at not just the highest rate, but an astronomical rate. So in terms of murder, I think blacks are off the chart. Some of the other things, I think blacks are in comparison to whites, what whites are in comparison to Asians. So I think there's a problem, but it's a smaller problem than people think. You don't have to be so defensive of other people just because they look like you. I'm not. That's weak gay mentality. See, again, this is why I was talking about sexuality on the spectrum. Yes, I use gay kind of how they use it as a negative thing, but it's only joking, right? So I'm playing. This person seems to actually really be saying that gay is bad. I don't agree with that. I read some of the other ones in connection with this tweet. You are 100% correct, and we should concerning accountability apply that same standard to the Jews. They spell Jews in a certain way. It's kind of condescending because just like blacks, not all but a large majority. Okay, they're losing me. I do think blacks should hold accountability, but I don't know about this. Not just like blacks, not all, but a large majority. The large majority of the 48 million blacks, 45 to 50 million blacks in America are doing well or at least decent in my opinion, and the vast majority of blacks are not causing a problem. So I disagree with you there, Nigerian born American. I do agree that we should discuss Arabs, Semites, Jews, etc. So when you say apply the same standard to Jews, I do. I question the Jews, I question the blacks, I question the Asians, I question the Vietnamese. Yes, I question everyone. I think questions are good. I think questions is the way you seek knowledge. So if you ask questions, I can find them myself or someone else will find them and present them to me. So I just believe that individually people become better and wiser by asking questions. Great video, sending love from Chicago. Thank you, Farfetch. Hit the subscribe button, smash the like. This is terrible. Yes, this is from R. Hone A. Peterson 514. It's about a video that I posted about Christians being murdered. We hear about Jews a lot being persecuted. We don't hear about Muslims a lot, but we hear about Muslims being persecuted more often than Christians, I believe. So in Nigeria, Muslims are persecuting Christians currently. And I did a segment about that persecution. So this person is just saying that's terrible. And they're saying it's also happening in Africa as a whole. So not just Nigeria. So I will look into that. More attention needs to be drawn to that. And now with there being some peace in the Middle East between the Hamas and Israel, but potentially the Muslims and the Middle Eastern powers in Israel, maybe there's a way that there could be some peace also with the Christians and Muslims in Africa. Maybe this peace can extend throughout the Middle East and reach the African continent. Some Ann Pasco 329 says, honey, they are racist, giving me vibes that she's saying the people commenting are racist. Some may be. Thank you for your support. Bianca Commando U1D. Nice channel. Thanks. Do you yourself favor, and even if you don't see the clip fresh from Nick's page, whoever, make sure you go straight to his video for your clip. Okay, I guess if I go to the video myself, I may know it's not edited. So I will consider what you're saying. No one wants to see you getting a clip from a guy that clipped. I guess, I mean, I don't think it would really bother anybody, but it's bothering you, so I'll consider your opinion. It looks lazy. Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, I don't follow Nick, but I can go to his Rumble. He's not on YouTube, right? So I'm on YouTube most of the day. So I just seen his clips either. Sometimes my producer presents them to me, or I may just find them as I'm searching online. So it wasn't so much being lazy and not going find his clip. I'm just picking clips that I came across myself. I'm still waiting for your pushback from RBG0711. What's your criticism besides telling black people to let them be called the N-word? Well, I'm not saying that y'all should. Okay, I am and I'm not. I'm saying black people should consider being open to white people just using the N-word, like saying nigga. Maybe not at them, but just see how they use the term to see what they mean. My pushback to Nick, I agree with some of what Nick says. My pushback today was sometimes he's conspiratorial, and then my pushback other times was that he takes general things and applies it to the whole black race, it seems, because he says things like the blacks, etc. And he speaks about blacks in a negative manner, when if he was more nuanced, like he seems to be now being with Israel, if he was more nuanced, I think that he could criticize blacks while still showing love to my people. So that's what I would hope that Nick can do in the future. Maybe he got to get a call from Kanye or somebody. Fetty Wap Pharmaceuticals, what a name. Fetty Wap Pharmaceuticals 8842. We're doing fine on our own. Bro, I do look at statistics, right? I believe that most people only present black statistics and what blacks do wrong. For this show, I've tried to provide statistics on East Asians, whites, Hispanics, and African Americans. And I may end up breaking this down and start doing it by socioeconomic background. I may start breaking it up by region, comparing the South to the West, to the North, to the Northeast. Because just like there are racial differences, just like there are class differences, just like there are economic differences, there are also regional differences, right? So it's not that what people say about whites, blacks, and Hispanics is not true. It's just if people took a different approach, right? If they started saying, well, look at the West, look at the South, look at the North, people would start seeing, oh, there are different ways we can break these groups down, and all problems aren't because of skin. All problems aren't because of gender. All problems aren't because of ideology. All problems aren't because of region. All the problems are because of all of these things, right? So you can nitpick and find any specific thing to break things down into. And if you break them down into those things, you will start seeing some groups do better. And it's not always racial. It's just whatever you break the groups into, some groups are doing better for various reasons. A few more because we have a lot of comments. We have Brenda Cook 5103. Tucker Carlson was right when he said Nick Fuentes was a weird little gay guy who lives in his mother's basement. I chuckled a little bit. It's kind of funny. I'm trying to keep the peace with the gripers, though. Why is Nick Fuentes so obsessed with black people? You're winning me over, Brenda. You're winning me over. There are white towns in the U.S. that he could move to instead of... I agree with you 100%. America's a big country. If whites want to move to places like rural America where they're already the majority, why not move there? Mike Lewis 8632. These folks are just plumb evil. Black people in America have not caused white people any harm. I guess the algorithm's showing it to a little more than groipers now. These folks are just plumb evil. Black people in America have not caused white people any hardship. How could we, when they hold systematic power, everybody else is always to blame? Jews, LGBT, immigrants, blacks, never themselves. Poor whites in America forever have been hoping and waiting for affluent and wealthy in their race to wave the wand and make them rich and powerful. And it's just not going to happen. It's just not their own are to blame for the struggles in America. Again, I agree with this. For the most part, I mean, blacks don't cause all the problems. Some problems blacks are causing more than other groups, but we're not causing all the problems. I don't believe in a systematic racism or systematic power, but I do believe there's a group of white people, mostly in the conservative movement, in the Republican Party, who do blame Jews, gays, immigrants, and blacks for all the problems, and even poor whites. And they kind of try to separate themselves and try to say that they're a better group than other people. You're not a worser group, but you're not better. You have your own faults. So we all should work together to improve the country. We have Open Your Eyes, Man 2020. Someone dropped you on your head, or were you just born slow? It may be genetic, bro. Black people don't think as quick as, I shouldn't say quick. Well, yeah, that's part of it too. Don't think as quick as whites and Asians. So sometimes I may stumble on words. Sometimes I may take a second to get my thoughts together. But I think it's better to get my thoughts together and say what I mean and be accurate than to just talk quickly to prove to you that I'm intelligent. I really don't give a fuck what you think. Sydney Jam RD705, and I read two more. No, we don't understand what you're saying and you sound stupid. Well, the previous guy said I'm already slow, but I could talk slower if you're struggling to understand. Nick Fuentes has valid points. Some of the things that he says are inaccurate. When he says something that's inaccurate, I provide facts to show people what is true, and I counter his argument. When he is correct, I give him credit. When he is wrong, I hold him accountable. I hope you understood English. Sydney Jam 7075. Hex 3639. The black community is doing fine on its own. Hell no, you're crazy as hell. Well, there are 45 million black people and about 10,000 commit murder every year. So let me do the math. I'm gonna get since I'm black, I can't do it in my head. 45 million. I know it's gonna be 44 million, by the way. I'm not that slow. 45 million minus 10,000 leaves us 44 million 990 million black people who aren't committing murder. I could also do this for welfare and a host of other crimes and negative things. The majority of black people are paying taxes and living a productive and prosperous life. It's a small minority that's causing a problem. This person left a lot of comments, so I won't. Well, I should, but I feel like I'ma just do them. And I kind of had this feeling. They left a bunch of comments. They hating on me. It's all right. This is Jonathan Thompson. Actually, my roommate in college had a friend named Jonathan Thompson. I hope that's not him. I don't think it is. 8538. I'll read all your comments, bro. Let's see what you're talking about. And they're all to the Nick Fuentes video. Hey, you're helping engagement though, homie. There's a reason you only have 120 subscribers. The show just started 2 weeks ago. That's why. He didn't say whites cook better. Do you listen? He might not have. Maybe I was mistaken. This guy's like 5 years old. Do I look 5, bro? Razor cuts. White do crimes, but the fact is that the amount blacks do are tenfold. For murder, it's tenfold. For most crimes, it's about double. And for violent crimes, it's threefold. We have a problem. I agree with you. You're just overblowing the problem. Dude, you're part of the problem. What the fuck? Please leave another comment and let me know how I'm part of the problem. Jonathan Thomas, 8538. Because I will respond to you and I have no problem with the dialogue. Hopefully you see that though I am criticizing you somewhat, I agree with you on some points and have no problem talking to you further. Because my hope from this podcast is to talk to people. Though we disagree on some things, we agree on others. So how about you and I talk and potentially become friends and maybe catch a bite to eat one day if you're in New Orleans. That'll be it for today because the producer said that, we had a lot of comments and we may not be able to get to them all. So I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Peace. Blacks, Hispanics, and whites can't read. Why you think I started a podcast? It's a fucking racist thing with you niggas, and that's why I'm coming at you niggas next. They love to talk about black violence. Have you heard of white violence? White people commit violent crime at 3 times the rate of Asians. When is Nick Fuentes going to talk about white violence? Everybody's arguing about their 2 genders. I sat next to her hermaphrodite in math class. Am I allowed to talk about the Jews? If she wanted, we could do it in the morning. Yawning, letting my eyes stretch. Baby, I ain't a novice. I've been a dog. She FaceTime, but